Hello, this is Spellsquires MTG, and I have the 8th episode of Sporefrog Shenanigans for you today. In today's episode, we have a fight-off between Kwain, which is a group hug deck, Niv Mizzet Parun, which is a Spellslingers combo deck. Then we have me, who's playing Daretti, which is an artifact combo deck. Then we have Alec playing Mizzix of the Izmagnus, which is a spell-slinging deck as well. So, let's get on with this game. It's pretty interesting. Let's get on with it. Harry plays an island and taps it to play a preordain. He scries 2, draws a card, then passes. Jack untaps, draws. He plays an island, then passes. I draw for turn. I play Mountain. I pay 1 for Soul Ring and pass. Alec draws. Plays a Halimar Depths. He looks at the top 3 cards of his library, then puts them back in a certain order. Harry untaps, draws. He plays the Plains. He pays 2. Then casts his commander Kwain. Then passes. Jack draws for turn, plays a Mountain and passes. I untap. Draw for turn. I tap 3 to cast Thopter Engineer. I make a Thopter token. I play Descent of the Fervent for turn and pass. Alec untaps, draws. He plays a Goblin Electromancer, then passes. Harry untaps, draws for turn. He pays 2 for an Arcane Signet, and pays 2 for a Thought Vessel. He taps Kwain, everyone chooses to draw a card, and everyone gains a life. Then he passes. Jack draws. He then passes, after playing an island. I untap, draw for turn. I play Darksteel Citadel for turn. And pay 4 to cast Daretti. Jack then taps 2 to cast Counterspell, countering my commander, and I'm insanely angry. I'm going to attack Jack with a Thopter. I then pass. Alec untaps, draws. He plays a command tower. Alec passes, Harry untaps, draws for turn. He plays an island. He taps 3 to cast Kira, Great Glass Spinner. He then plays a Mother of Balloons. Harry taps Kwain. Everyone draws a card and gains life. Then he passes the turn. Jack untaps, draws the turn. He plays a Mirrored Landscape, plays a Sky Diamond and passes. I untap and draw for turn. I play Solemn Simulacrum after playing a Buried Ruin. I go and find a mountain, put a Battlefield tapped, then shuffle my library. I then attack Jack for 1 with my Thopter. Then I pass the turn, Alec untaps and draws. He plays an island, and pays 4 to cast Mizzet, then passes the turn. Alec then passes, Harry untaps, draws for turn. He plays a Plains, and pays 3 to cast Ghostly Prison. Then pays 4 to cast Archon of Absolution. Then he taps Kwain, everyone draws the card and gains life. Then he passes. Jack untaps, draws. He plays an island for turn. Jack plays 3 to cast Midnight Clock. Then Jack passes. I untap, draw for turn, midnight clock triggers. I tap 10 to improvise out Saheeli's directive, X equals 7. I've got the top X cards of my library, and I can put any number of artifact cards with CMC X or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest into my graveyard. I get a Lodestone Golem, a Treasure Keeper, and a Staff of Domination, and put them on the battlefield. The other 5 cards then go in my graveyard. Alec untaps, draws a turn. He plays an island, taps it for a Stole Ring. He then pays 6 to cast Metallurgic Summonings. Alec then passes. Harry untaps, draws a turn. He plays a Skycloud Expanse for turn. He taps Kwain. Everyone gains life and chooses to draw a card. Harry casts Mage of the Disc, which enters tapped. Harry then passes. On Harry's end step, Jack activates Mirrored Landscape, sacrificing it to go and find 2 mountains. He untaps, Midnight Clock triggers, he puts another counter on it, and then he draws for turn. He taps 4 to cast Chaos Warp, targeting Lodestone Golem. I shuffle in Lodestone Golem. Jack pays 2 to cast Full of Possibility, and I reveal a mountain off the Chaos Warp. As an additional cost to throw a possibility, he discards Merchant of the Veil and then draws 2. He then passes. I untap, Midnight Clock gets another counter, and I draw for turn. I pay 6 to cast Daretti again. I then tick up Daretti, discarding 2 and drawing 2. I then cast Jessica's Will. Harry then casts Arcane Denial, countering Jessica's Will, which I thought was very sad. Alec untaps, draws a turn, I draw 2 and Harry draws 1. Alec taps 5 to cast Part of the Water Veil. In response, Jack casts Mana Leak. And in response to that, Alec casts Deflecting Swat. Harry then counters Deflecting Swat. And Alec casts Arcane Denial to counter Alec's counter spell. Alec then takes an extra turn and makes a 6/6 token with Metallurgic Summonings. He also gets a 2/2 and a 3/3 from the other spells. Alec moves to his extra turn and taps and draws, and on the upkeeps, Harry draws 2 and Alec draws 1. Alec casts Nibliss of Frost. Alec moves to combat. Alec sends all his creatures at my commander. I drop 6. I block the 6/6 with Treasure Keeper. 3/2, 3/3 with Solemn. And the other creature with a 1/3. I lose none of them. I draw a card from Solemn. Then I reveal cast myself from my library, so I reveal a card with CMC 3 or less. I then reveal Magus to the Wheel and cast it without paying its mana cost. Alec then passes. Harry untaps sloppily and draws a card. He plays a Command Tower for turn. He taps Kwain. Everyone gains life and draws a card. Harry then casts Path to Exile, targeting Mizzix. Alec pays 2 to cast Counter Spell. Harry then pays 2 to Reality Shift Mizzix. And with the Nibliss of Frost trigger, Alec taps down Magus the Wheel. It doesn't untap during my next untap step. And he also makes a 2/2. Reality Shift resolves, exiles Mizzix. Alec zones him, and then he manifests the top card of his library. He taps 3 to cast Jace Bellerin, and pluses him up. Everyone draws a card. Harry then casts Wafasidid Profiteer, and he passes. Jack untaps, draws. He plays a mountain. He taps 6 to cast Niv Mizzet. Then he pays 3 to cast Jessica's Will, targeting me. Alec then plays a blue to Reality Shift Niv Mizzet. Jack returns to its command zone. Alec taps down the Profiteer. Jack exiles the top 3 cards of his library and gets 12 red mana. Jack then whizzes Lightnings his Alec's Goblin Electromancer. deals 3 damage to it, killing it. Jack then do nothing else with Jessica's will and passes. Untap, draw for turn. I pass up Daretti, discarding 2 mountains and drawing 2 cards. I pay 5 to cast Cold Road for Forge Master. I pay 2 to cast Ichor Wellspring, I draw a card. I then sacrifice 3 artifacts, one of them is Ichor Wellspring, so I draw a card. Then I go and search my library for an artifact and put it on the battlefield. And I put a Darksteel Forge onto the battlefield. I then play a Mind Stone and cast Liquid Metal Coating. I discard some cards and pass. Alec untaps and draws for turn. Alec taps 3 to cast Tezzeret's Gambit. He then pays 2 life for the Phyrexian mana cost. He draws 2 cards and proliferates, getting another experience counter. And taps down my only blocker. And Alec makes a 4/4 artifact with Metallurgic Summonings. Alec then attacks Daretti for 8 and he dies. Then Alec passes. Harry untaps and draws for turn. Harry plays a Cast Ardent Veil and pays 5 to cast Tragic Arrogance. And I'm sad because my Darksteel Forge is ineffective in this situation. I then make Alec's Metallurgic Summonings an artifact. Alec cracks the Metallurgic Summonings, exiling it because he has enough artifacts. Returns all instants and sorceries from his graveyard to his hand. Tragic Arrogance then resolves, which is bad for me as I have a Darksteel Citadel. Harry then chooses my Darksteel Citadel, and all my artifacts go. My Mages of the Wheel gets destroyed as well. Jack gets to keep his Midnight Clock, and a Sky Diamond gets sacrificed. The smallest Metallurgic Summonings creature gets picked for my artifact and creature, and all of the other artifacts and creatures then are sacrificed. Harry chooses Kira, the Great Glass Spinner, and the rest of me only has 1 of each type. Harry plus 2's Jace, everyone gets to draw a card. Harry taps 4 to replay his commander, then passes. Jack untaps and draws. Jack casts Niv Mizzet. He pays 1 to put Curiosity onto Niv Mizzet. Jack then makes a deal with Alec to point all the damage not at him. Nobody other than Alec has a counter spell, so the spell resolves. Jack then passes. On my upkeep, Midnight Clock gets a counter. Jack shuffles his hand and graveyard into his library and draws 7. Harry's then chosen to the first to die. Harry then says he's going to go out with a bang. Harry then admits his death. Jack draws 46 cards and kills Harry. Jack then points 44 damage at me, and then he has no cards in his library. And then Jack is left with no cards in his library. I play a Mind Slaver for 6 mana. I'm then 1 mana short, so I can't activate it, which is very sad. I flash back Faithless Looting to draw 2 and discard 2. I then concede due to the fact that Alec can remove my blocker and then attack me for 2, and Jack has no library. So Alec wins the game. Post-game review. That game was not particularly long. It ended on turn 8 or 9, I think. Overall, there were very many mistakes. Other than Alec letting Curiosity resolve, which he could have countered. However, he would have won. Well, he did win because of it. Overall, the card of the game, Tragic Arrogance. I had a very firm lock on the board towards the end of the game. However, due to my Darksteel Forge and all my artifacts having indestructible, I could keep on searching up more and more artifacts and eventually combo off. However, Harry had the perfect board wipe for it, which makes you sacrifice artifacts, creatures, etc. Meaning that my Darksteel Forge was ineffective. Also completely removed all of Alec's helpful artifacts and enchantments, got rid of all of his big creatures, and it's just generally an incredibly good card. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.